Indonesia has officially applied a domestic market obligation for crude palm oil, partly to help maintain the domestic supply of crude palm oil and stabilize the prices of palm oil products such as cooking oil. Now, starting from the 1st of February 2022, the Indonesian government is officially implementing a domestic market obligation for crude palm oil and the palm oil derivative product, palm oil. This means that exporters of crude palm oil and oil will have to supply at least 20% of their export volume for domestic needs. Now, the domestic market obligation was implemented to help maintain the domestic supply of crude palm oil and stabilize the prices of palm oil products, such as cooking oil. Now, based on the Ministry of Trade's data, as per the 20th of January, the price of simple packaged cooking oil has risen by 3.26% to 19,000 per liter, while the price of premium cooking oil has increased by 4% to 20,800 rupiah per liter. That is on a year-on-year basis. The Ministry of Trade realizes that the domestic market obligation will reduce global supply of crude palm oil and increase its international price, but they affirm that Indonesia is prioritizing its people first.
Oh gitu. Kok mulai minggu depan minyak harus turun semua, Bu? Iyalah.
So Indonesia has implemented a domestic market obligation for crude palm oil, largely to help maintain supply and keep down prices of palm oil-based products such as cooking oil, as I mentioned. But how effective will this DMO or domestic market obligation be? Let's talk further with Dr. Yayan Satyaki. Now, Dr. Yayan, first of all, can you explain to our viewers why the price of cooking oil has been increasing so much as of late in Indonesia?
Okay. Especially our palm oil industry have been the largest producer in palm oil product. So we supply many larger countries, such as like the United States and the European Union. So there is a price gap between the domestic market and international market. But I think maybe most of the producer of palm oil in Indonesia prefer to international market because international market is getting recover. So the demand from palm oil increase, but the price is different. You know that the international price is always larger than the domestic market. So because most of the product has been exported to other countries, so our domestic, due to our, our income also level, and also there is something like the price in domestic market is smaller. So, but the demand still increasing, especially during this economic recovery. So there is a huge gap between the domestic market and international market. So the government imposed the domestic market obligations. This is something like, mandatory productions for the producer of palm oil to be supplied for the domestic market. But as you know, we have some problem how to trade this kind of between the international market and the domestic market. But our firm, or mostly of our producers, they prefer to international market.
Okay, Pak.
So I think it's supposed to be that our government has imposed the mandatory market, that the producer should be first fulfilled in domestic and afterwards in international market.
Okay, Pak. Now, I also want to ask, because Indonesia is the biggest producer of crude palm oil in the world, but they're having difficulty in keeping the prices of palm oil products down, such as cooking oil. I mean, what do you think is the problem here? Is there some kind of lack in management of the supply from the government side that they have to make a domestic market obligation?
I think it's always happened in every commodities in Indonesia, not only about the palm oil,
Right.
also it's about the coal, and also about the other products such as like the hot chili, and also about meat, and many kind of the commodities has always problem like this. So I think the stockpiling management market, it's supposed to be, well managed in Indonesia, not only about the palm oil and also the energy market, but I think most of the all commodities, it's supposed to be well managed. We have the good inventory system, so we have good distribution system, and we have enough, such as like the warehouses, so we can manage or at least give some early warning system if something like the supply or there is something like the price gap between the domestic market and international market, so we can resupply and manage our inventory system. Actually, it is typical in our economy every year. So if there is something like the gap between the international price, they prefer to sell our product to international market. But some of them, they forgot that they have something like the obligation to fulfill a supply for the domestic market. I think it's about the government willingness how to tackle and give something like the more pay attention to manage this oil, or maybe something like the palm oil stockpiling management.
All right, so you're saying the crude palm oil stockpiling management needs to be improved, and that happens with other commodities in Indonesia, but now they're trying to improve it, of course, with this domestic market obligation. So with the implementation of the domestic market obligation, where exporters have to sell 20% of their export volume to Indonesia, will this effectively push down cooking oil prices in Indonesia, do you think?
Okay, because a few months ago, okay, maybe last month, so we have problem also with coal, and now we have problem also with palm oil. It depends on the government and something like the zero-sum game, maybe with the firm, how to deal with it. But I think because we are the biggest or the largest palm oil producer, I think the government can push to the company or the firm of palm oil to make something like the mandatory, or maybe something, like last month. Maybe the government can give something like the sanction, or maybe something like the specific policy how to fulfill their mandatory objective. Because if government unable to fulfill this mandatory objective, it will be ironically that we are the largest producer of palm oil, but our price of this commodity it's not affordable. It's really ironic.
It truly is ironic. Stockpiling needs to be improved, as you said, and also you're saying the exporters also have to keep up with domestic supply of crude palm oil. Now, interestingly, the reason why they implemented this is because the international price of crude palm oil has been increasing as of late. But the Ministry of Trade officials are even admitting that with this DMO, the international market price of crude palm oil will increase even further. So first of all, what is your projection of how high the crude palm oil prices could increase after this domestic market obligation?
So it's depend on first about oil price. So if the oil price is getting stabilized, so it will stabilize also other commodities. So hopefully, if the Ukraine and Russian tension it's declining, so it will be our oil price. It will be stabilized, and then global supply chains in the whole economy or in the world is getting stabilized. So it will improve the stabilization for other commodities. So maybe if the Ukraine-Russian tensions is getting higher, So the price, it will be $100 per barrel.
Yeah.
So I think the palm oil price, it will be increased about 1.5 times at this moment. So I think hopefully there is no other geopolitical conflict, especially for the energy price, because the energy price is always something like they have strong connection between other commodities. So hopefully there will be good and stabilized political tensions in Europe, and also this will impact to the economy like Indonesia at this moment. I think we need to really concern about the how between these commodities we have to manage very well. Yes.
Yeah, right. You're saying we have to manage very well because this year is quite a year full of uncertainties. As you said, Russia-Ukraine tensions could push up oil prices further. That could push up crude palm oil prices further as well. So Indonesia needs to improve its stockpiling management system. But just lastly, in your opinion, do you think that this will have a big impact on inflation in Indonesia? Because oil prices could go up, crude palm oil prices could go up. Do you see that having a big impact on inflation in 2022 in Indonesia?
Okay. I think it's really hard to answer because this is the external effect, and this external effect, it's really uncontrollable. So hopefully, if there is a good news in external economy, so I think our economy, it will be only maybe have cost in terms of increasing of the Fed interest rate. So if the interest rate it's getting higher, so the cost of capital in our economy it's getting more expensive. So our interest rate and our financing during this economic recovery will be, impact to the inflation. So hopefully, this 2020 it's really hard for our economy, but hopefully the domestic market will assist us to get something like the improve the domestic market, and we have the good stockpiling management, especially in energy market and also in food market, so the government can fulfill or give something like assist that the firm to fulfill the domestic market obligation, not only in terms of palm oil, also in coal and other products. So I think we prefer that domestic market will assist us to get more stronger economy and strengthen our economic enforcement in the future.
All right, so you see a lot of positive impact from this domestic market obligation. Hopefully it will increase our supply and keep our prices lower for this year to come. Dr. Yayan Satyaki, researcher and professor at the University of Padjadjaran, thank you so much for joining us on Jakarta Movers and Shakers. All right, up next, we'll have full analysis of international markets. That's coming up on Jakarta Movers and Shakers.